just gonna go ahead and distribute the loot here.
I'm hoping for some teeth now.
There's no loot. Gonna go ahead and distribute the loot here.
Maybe you're gonna have to wait till next week. No loot, no loot, no loot, no loot, no loot, no loot, no loot. No loot Sundays.
Oh my goodness, we're finally back, and it appears everything is unmuted. This is Braille. Braille's back, and with me, as always, is my partner in crime, Faye. How you doing, Faye?
I'm pretty sure that's a lie. I don't think you're actually back.
All right, we got spikes happening all over the place. Here we go. All right.
Nice.
Yeah. How you been,
Yeah.
Faye?
Stressed.
Stressed. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it. So let's see. I believe the last episode we were able to actually do was back in December. So it's been over 3 months, probably going on 4 months here since we've done No Loot Sundays, and
We did that one episode that you're like, I'll upload it later. I don't know if that ever got.
oh, yeah, because OBS was just breaking on us. Yeah, that was awful. Yeah, so I don't think that ever got uploaded. But so we had, the holidays happened, and after that, it was kind of hard to find some motivation on my end. I was feeling very demotivated about pretty much everything at that time, and so I started shying away from No Loot Sundays, and then after that, and I'm not sure if I used this as an excuse or anything, but after that, we started preparing for the MDI because the MDI had been announced.
Well, actually,
early
even
January.
I would say even before that, we were completely burnt out on World of Warcraft. And
Yeah.
when your podcast's just kind of centered around World of Warcraft,
Yeah, and to get burnt out, it's not a good thing. Well, it was.
we had a fun little foray into other games.
Yeah, for sure. And it was like, I think it was either early January or mid-January that we actually ended up getting ahead of the curve done for Antorus the Burning Throne, and which was really exciting. And that we got that done, and after that was the MDI getting announced, the Mythic Dungeon Invitational, which we really wanted to make a break for. We wanted to push ourselves, our team, Eulogy, into the tournament realm and everything. And we might talk a little bit about the MDI tonight, but as you can probably guess, the podcast is back. The MDI is still going on. Yes, we did not make it to the tournament realm, which sucks, but we'll be better prepared next time, and we do plan to try again in Battle for Azeroth, and hopefully, No Loot Sundays will still be going strong, and maybe even stronger, and hopefully we'll be able to balance MDI with No Loot Sundays and not be overrun by stress. But that's really what it was, because I know, at least speaking for myself, I was very stressed out by the MDI. And it was like a good stress, but stress is also just stress. So I was very much preparing as much as I could for that, focusing as much as I could for that on every single dungeon with all of the affixes and ways our team comp can advance and everything. And where we failed at would probably be just, we didn't give ourselves bullshit, and we didn't give ourselves enough time to prepare, because had we had enough time to prepare, we could have tried put stuff in place for the bullshit. And the bullshit, of course, being the fact that you had to cheese your way into the tournament realm, and by the requirement level. Even in Mythic gear, and that's the thing that kind of surprises me the most, is that, the Mythic rating with some of the best gear in the game, even they had to use some cheese stuff to get into the tournament realm. It's very surprising.
Yeah, a little surprising. What was more surprising to me was that the the time trials are lower level than
Oh
the
my
requirement
God.
to get in.
Dude, no kidding. Like, it doesn't. There's a lot of things that really don't make sense. I wrote up a forum post that, unfortunately, because I kept getting a 500 error, the forum wouldn't let me post it. But I'm gonna go ahead and pull that up so that I can read that to everybody, because a lot of what I think about with the MDI can be summed up better in a article or a Q&A. I think it was on Wowhead. It was J.B, if I remember right.
Yeah.
I don't have that forum post anymore. Oh, crap. Well, I don't have it. But yeah, J.B, who is one of the best healers in the world for MDI, I believe is he a part of Method?
I
I think he is.
think so.
But he's
I believe he was on Method's team. He wasn't. I don't think he was able to compete in the
He
MDI
wasn't.
because of where he lives.
yeah, I think he was out of Quebec or something.
Yeah, and yep, that's one of the forbidden zones.
Yeah, he can't compete in the MDI, but he wasn't able to compete. But he wrote up like his understanding of how this this competition just kind of fell in this round where, you had your cheese strats that you had to implement, like your DPS had to have tanking trinkets to survive boss fights at level 23, and also you had to use really corny speed run strats. Like one of the ones he like pointed to and said this needed to be implemented was the Eye of Ajara skip to the second to last boss. So from Serpentix, you would basically climb up to where you jump down, or you'd walk over to where you jump down for to go to the last boss from the second to last boss, the giant to the giant fish, and you would have to go up there, get a warlock up there, and then like use your demon gate to basically with a mount that could like a yak or a mammoth that could hold multiple people, and basically you would glitch when you use a demon gate and teleport everybody up there that's on that mount. And so I think it was something like you had to have a demon hunter and you had to have a warlock obviously and stuff, but it was just really just bullshit, the way that kind of worked out.
Yep. I'm assuming that's to bypass the two giants before him.
Yeah,
Just
it bypasses the giants, and it also saves you a fuckload of time.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Well,
clear that cave.
because those giants, like, you
Oh,
have
they
to burn
suck.
one super quick, and even on 20, they can easily wipe you
Yeah,
just because. I don't know. There was a lot of it. It's one of those things where it's like, it was obviously a step in the right direction from the first one, which was kind of just like, truly, you have to be in a Mythic guild to be in it because they only really invited they invited the specific teams they wanted. This
Right.
time they wanted to have it be open, but not too open. And what I don't understand is, okay, let's say they want to spin up a single tournament realm where people can create any characters. I get why they probably wanted to see how much interest there was in it, but they could have, I don't know, they could have had the process be a bit different, like have people sign up beforehand, and then based on their times, that's where you set your cutoff. Like sign up a month in advance, and then they like, okay, you have to start like this is not when you have to push, but we want to see where you're at so we can kind of evaluate where we need to set the bar. I don't know. It just felt like the bar was it a little cheesy. I don't know. The cheese was what was most bothering to me, because like there are some fights where it's just like even a pro, like at 21 and stuff, it was just like, this feels almost impossible.
Yeah.
With what we've got. And like we had a warlock, so he's got one of the tankiest DPS classes in the game right now. And then we also had a monk, which is me, and I had multiple defensives to burn and still would get killed through them.
Yeah. I mean,
And like on some fights, it's like there's also the RNG factor to it that drives
absolutely.
me insane, because it's like you could have the easiest time in the world on Xavius, if he decides to constantly can't target your tank with Fear on the Weak, easy job.
Mhm.
Everyone saves their defensive for 50%, game over. Like, he is a super easy boss, but if he does that, if he doesn't do that, you're screwed.
Yeah, but I will say, and
Like-
sorry, go ahead.
And like another one is the order of like what cast you get on Medivh, Shade of
Yeah.
Medivh, that can make or break your run.
Absolutely. And also there was, I mean, one of the big noticeable things about some of these fights in the end, like when you're preparing for the MDI, getting those higher levels, is you really start to feel where a lot of these dungeons still have bug problems. And like here we are at the end of the expansion, and these dungeons still have bug problems. And my thing is, if you want to have a competition that is based around running these dungeons, you have to clean this shit up. Like the best example I could think of is Quaking was setting off Flame Wreath on Medivh. And so basically, you had to hope like Christ that you would get hit by Quaking right before Flame Wreath went off, and then that you could just get through that Flame Wreath without Quaking going off. It was crazy frustrating. But on top of that, there are things like that RNG factor that I feel are actually important to boss fights in general, because if you can just plan for everything in the fights, it kind of makes it easier. You're not really like fighting a boss, in my opinion. At that point, you're doing a math problem.
I don't know. For me, it makes it more into the RPG thing. Like if I'm getting prepared ahead of time, I think the things that frustrate me is like you can prepare in the sense that, okay, we don't know who it's going on, so they have to react. But let's prepare by giving everyone this potion. Nope, doesn't work.
Yeah.
Not like it's like.
Yeah, we tried that with.
Come on,
Court of
like.
Stars.
Like stuff like that is just like these would be things that it would be. I don't know. I'll be interested to see. Maybe there'll be stuff like with the new battleground that's in rotation now. You've got Seething Shore at the starting zone. There's consumables you can buy. Yeah. I would actually love to see stuff like that entering into Mythic Plus. Like, hey, you can get this consumable.
That is an interesting idea. And
like maybe it's like you can only purchase one consumable, and you have to kind of make that choice and plan ahead. I don't know. That's probably getting too RPG-ish for World of Warcraft.
Actually, this kind of segues well into, because I also want to talk about like the Mythic Dungeon, the Keystones rather, what they're shaping up to be in Battle for Azeroth, because there has been some discussion, it might have been this week's Q&A, when they were talking about Mythic Dungeon and, what can we expect for Keystones going forward, and a few things that were mentioned that I found very interesting. So they're talking about potentially making it so that you get, you start with Tyrannical or Fortified at level 2. All Keystones start with it. And then potentially having a fourth affix come in at level 10 instead of, your Tyrannical Fortified, which you already have. Where this gets more interesting to me is that they're talking about adding a buff debuff kind of affix into the game, which I would just be like, my thing is, I never outright ask for an alpha or a beta key from Blizzard because I don't think there's any point. But this one time I actually did, because I am so interested into testing. I'm so interested in testing what they are planning for Keystones, because I fucking love Mythic Dungeons. I love this. My favorite aspect of the game right now is Mythic Plus, and it's just so interesting to me to see what they're gonna work on and what we're gonna end up with. And I want to see that whole process firsthand if I could, and if I could give input, that would be great. But to me,
there's been some interesting. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, branching off what you said with the vendor and the dungeons, that would make for a great affix, where you have the positives and the negatives. Cool. The positive is you have this vendor that offers these potions or these runes or whatever that you can only use in this specific dungeon, and maybe these potions are even specific to the dungeon, but you can only get one of those potions per run, and you can only use that potion once per run. I think would be really interesting. So let's say it's you get 10 seconds immunity. That would be, basically another defensive that would be really interesting to have in, say, a dungeon like Court of Stars or in Darkheart Thicket. Because thinking about Court of Stars, the second to last boss is no joke either. That's a tough fight, and if you get into a sticky spot where somebody messed up and the imps are, getting on the wrong person or whatever,
or just period, the imps decide
a little early.
Yeah, or more annoyingly, most of the time, from what I've seen, when it goes smoothly, the imps are just casting on everyone. They're not all targeting one person. It's when they all decide, hey, I want that guy dead. You can't do anything.
Yeah. It's awful. But I think
And
it
I'm sure, like the way, like we know ways to prevent that, which is obviously like line of sighting them when they're casting, and cast broken, they move. But it's interesting now to take that step further, which like I would love this to make Mythic Dungeons interesting. You have bosses that are not required for the keystone, but they give a buff.
Ooh.
So you could go and be like, hey, there's a like kind of like the world bosses that you get in dungeons, like, hey, we can kill this guy and we're gonna get like permanent minor bloodlust. Something like that would be interesting, because it's like, is the trade-off of burning this time on this extra boss going to pay off with being able to kill everything else quicker? And the big problem with all of these kind of things is it just like with consumables, it's a more interesting thing. With something like that, that'll just come down to the math, and that becomes less interesting because it's no longer the trade-off of, hey, let's kill this extra boss. It's just mathematically we should kill this extra boss because it always works out better. What I was going to say is, like, if they're talking about like buff debuff type affixes and stuff, like I've been playing a little bit of Destiny 2, not much, but like in the Nightfalls, you've got two affixes effectively. One that is just like affecting the amount of time you have. So like, hey, if you do these things, you get more time added to your timer. And the B option is always like something that's like a positive and a negative, like you can only regen health while moving and stuff like that. So like I love that part of it. It's really interesting to have stuff like that. Maybe you have something where it's like the damage type rotates, so you actually want to bring multiple separate classes. Now I do know that they're kind of moving back into the space of, it's no longer bring the player, not the class. It's kind of like, no, bring the class. Is definitely the feel it's going for. I don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I was very interested to see them kind of. A lot of things are kind of changing in their old design versus new. Like in the past, it was like we must have a balanced number of race options for each class.
Right.
And now it's like, no, that doesn't, like, we're going to focus on lore now. Like, does it make sense lore-wise?
There's some people that would argue with you.
Well, like that's their goal. That's what they've stated. And like, I kind of, so far, I'm trying to think like of any of the ones that are already out, if any classes seem to not mesh with them, and I don't think they do.
As far as class race combos, rather.
Yeah, for the new the new races so far, I think they all fit.
There's one that a lot of people on the forums are really upset about right now, and I don't think it's rightfully so. Personally, I feel like
the Zandalari not getting Paladin.
No, the Kultiran humans getting Druid, which is all but confirmed at this point because you have images, data-mined images of all of the forms coming out for Kultiran Druids. Kultiran Druids recently confirmed as an allied race that is likely going to be unlocked later on in the expansion, would be my guess, along with Zandalari Trolls, which would mean that Magar and Magar Orcs would be likely coming, and this is something that just, it's kind of putting the pieces together. Like a lot of people, like it makes sense when you think about it. You know, going into the expansion, you would go back for more allied races, as we already have. You know, we went back for High Mountain races, we're the High Mountain Tauren. We went back for the Void Elves and the Draenei, Lightforged Draenei. But so we'd be going back for the Magar Orcs when the expansion launches on the Horde, and going back for the Dark Iron Dwarves for the Alliance. And then later on in the expansion, get Kultiran humans, get Zandalari Trolls, the new races essentially. So I'm
curious, the Kultiran humans being druids. Like I don't know, and I don't think any of us know enough about their lore because they've been away for so long.
I 100% agree.
I think in some ways it feels like we're going to this wild land where druids would make sense. Although I kind of wish if they were going to give any of the races druid on the Alliance side, Worgen, who are a freaking druid curse.
They're kind of a druid curse.
I mean that like they literally go talk to druids to cure themselves and shapeshift out. Like it's like they could have there's so many more
Wait, I
places.
thought Worgans could be druids. Am I crazy?
Did Are they?
I think I'm crazy, but I'm gonna check now.
no? I think they may be. I may have just completely. They're.
If they can be, I'll show it on the screen just for.
Oh yeah,
confirmation.
they can be.
Look
just-
at you derping.
Yeah.
And I'm logging into
Did that get
WoW.
added on Kata or not Kata
I
but
think
Mop?
they've
Because I
always-
know they added a lot of stuff to Mop.
I think they've always been able to, but I'm just honestly not sure. But yeah, they can be druids.
Yeah.
So yeah, but even still, I agree that Kultiran humans, there's nothing wrong with them being able to be druids. But what I really like though is the way Blizzard is kind of stepping away from this singular identity for druids at least. I want them to do this for all classes though, to where your classes aren't exactly just your class. You know, you're not just a druid. You're a Kultiran druid. You know, you look like Wicker Man stuff whenever you transform, or you're a Zandalari druid. You look like dinosaur stuff when you transform. Like that to me is really, really, really cool. And if they can find ways
Yeah.
to incorporate that
If
with
they
other classes, that would be amazing. Like just
Now,
for
now I
example,
remember what.
Sorry.
Now I remember what bugged me about Worgen. I completely. I brain farted on this so bad. It wasn't that they can be druid. It's the fact that like none of their druid forms incorporate Worgen.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I agree.
And so,
they
like,
could be
what
a
you're saying
great
is, like,
one.
maybe they can go back and do like they've been doing animation redone, it does model re. So maybe at some point we'll get a druid form revamp
See,
where
and this,
they're more race based.
yeah. See, and this to me feels like it's something that's less about gameplay but more about aesthetic, and it's more. This is something more for the art team to be able to do. And granted, it's not like they don't have enough work to do already, but it still would be just, for example, a warlock. You know, an undead warlock being more of a necromancer than a warlock would be really cool. Where they don't really summon demons, but they summon like undead stuff, and not. I'm trying to think of ways to make it different from Death Knights as far as like
Yeah.
the aesthetic goes, but I mean maybe it wouldn't be that much more different from Death Knights because they're undead, and then your demon boys are more of your more towards other races like orcs and stuff. But I just think it would be pretty cool to create some race class combination identity too, you know, and make it a little more special. But I think it's exciting because we just had a class-based expansion for the most part, you know, like what we're doing is dealing with our own overhauls with our classes, and now we're doing race stuff, which I think is really fun because that's where you kind of you get into the real story, the meat behind the game, you know, who you are, what these, you know, races are, what they've been doing. I would love to see, you know, the heads of all of the races having more of a prominent role in the game. And the best, you know, when you think about Legion, you know, you had your scenes with Sylvanas, your scenes with Anduin, your scenes with Gen Greymane. Yeah, you had those spots, but when it came down to it, it was Prophet Velen, Khadgar, Torellian, Illyria, you know, and they were the story of this expansion. Illidan, you know, they were the story of this expansion. Not the king, not the war chief, not any of them. And the hope is that that's going to be what changes in Battle for Azeroth. Is that, you know, yeah, fucking Mechatork's going to be there in Borealis. You know, you're going to have Saurfang in Zandalar. That'd be awesome. You know, you're going to see more of these guys. Bane's going to be prominent. You know, that would.
There's some
That'd be cool.
there's some interesting data mining stuff about that,
Yeah,
but
there is.
that actually brings me to one of the things that I've been trying, like, I'm reading the feedback and I'll watch the dev interviews, but I'm kind of trying to watch out some of the data mining because I don't want, like, I'm fine with class abilities and combat and stuff like that getting spoiled. I don't want to spoil any of the story for myself
Yeah, me too.
going in.
The
Like,
same way.
there's been a little bit like going on. It's like the end, like maybe they'll be able to do something to kind of surprise us because, like, even with all the data mining we had, the drop times of things, it was surprising with the races. Like no one
saw
we
that
weren't
coming.
really expecting them to be that soon. It was like no, we're dropping them now. Like we were like, we know it's coming, but we don't think it's going to come like next patch. Like it'll be farther down the road. Nope, boom, instant.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Maybe I don't know. Like it'll be interesting to see if they're like, I do know that currently, like some of the data mining, none of the, like with the dialogue between characters, the characters don't have names, so Blizzard is doing some hiding there.
Yeah.
Although you can kind of figure out who's talking to who.
Yeah, I've been doing my best to completely avoid any of the story, like to avoid any dialogue or anything. So I'm not really up to date on any of that. But I do, I do think, with what you're saying about, they suddenly dropped the Allied races on us, that was incredible. How quickly that happened. It's like, yeah, pre-purchase and they blah, blah, blah. Awesome. That's amazing. And pretty much, I would say it's probably a safe bet that they probably have the highest pre-purchase rate for Battle for Azeroth than any other expansion. Because it wasn't like Legion where it was like, you'll be able to play Demon Hunter a few weeks early. Like, it was like, yeah, you can play Allied Races right fucking now. Like, and everybody was getting their Allied Races, and you could see, like, the queue was crashed, the site was crashed, everything crashed, the servers crashed. Like, it was nuts.
Well, there wasn't much I didn't see much on the server crashing. There was obviously queue times again.
Yeah.
But the main thing was, like, and this goes to their payment processor, man, that they were obviously not expecting the volume that came through.
Yeah, that was a mess. That was a mess.
And like that's from a business standpoint, that's both on Blizzard and whoever they use for payment processing.
Yeah, third-party payment.
Because and part of it's also like some of the mistakes are also on customer side. Because like if a lot of people were, and you included, I didn't know made this mistake of purchasing multiple times, or was that someone else?
Yeah.
But
no,
the whole problem is it's like you hit it, and yes, that's on Blizzard for not being clear with the message. But at the same time, I don't know. I've been shopping online for so long that if something doesn't go through, I'm not going to immediately send it again. I'm going to check everywhere that I can to make sure it didn't actually go through.
Yeah.
And then try make the purchase again. And I think a lot from the customer standpoint, people are getting a little excited. Like, I gotta get. It's like it's not like the old days where you're waiting in line. Like, it's not gonna be gone. You're not gonna be like, we're just gonna, we're only doing pre-purchase for the next 20 minutes, and then it's gone.
And then it's gone. Oh, God,
but there was. What's funny is just like the amount of drama that problem caused.
Yeah.
That just got blown away. Like, I mean, like, it just immediately disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, until I got the actual pre-purchase, I didn't care that the money was being taken out of my account, except for the fact that I couldn't spend that freaking money. But like, I was going to spend that freaking money on the pre-purchase, and so it was just like, I was so frustrated, like in the days where I'm like, just fix your fucking system, give me my money back. I was so frustrated, and then like, it got to the point where Faye was like, I'm gonna loan you the money if you'll just shut the hell up. Like, it was great. That's the key to life, kids. Bitch your way to the top. But
yeah. Oh, but like, part of me is like that one's also like rough because there's a lot of finger pointing.
Yeah.
From like, as Blizzard was saying, no, like we can't release it. Our payment purchaser can do that, but they don't have a direct communicate. I understanding a little bit of how this works is like Blizzard doesn't necessarily know how to tell them who you are because they only know your credit card number. And
right.
So it becomes this messy thing. So that's why usually it's best to go to your bank and say, bank, tell them that this is a false purchase, and that it goes through that way easier than trying to communicate, hey, here's my credit card number. Can you find the purchase on your end that was this and cancel it? That just seems like a bad idea. But it was just so... it's just interesting watching the internet just throw a little hissy fit on stuff like that. And then like there are also the people who are kind of complaining like, I leveled up the Allied race and I'm just not interested, so I want to refund it. Well, if you read the terms, you can't do that. And then
like, the Allied race, I'm not interested. I'll keep the Allied race, but just give me the refund.
Well, it's like we want to just I deleted the character, so I should be able. It's like it doesn't work that way. You already like consumed some of the content that is tied to that. And yes, you can argue that no, it's currently in Legion, therefore it's Legion content. But like, I don't know, that stuff. It was funny and frustrating to watch people agreeing with it, but funny when just because like you have such a sense of entitlement.
So, speaking of allied races, heirloom armor. Is there heirloom? Wow. What is it? Heritage armor. The appearance only stuff. Is there any race so far that you really want to go after that heritage armor for?
If you, one of my characters right now is it's my second warlock on the server. I'm actually going to transfer one of my warlocks off, probably to Hyjal.
Mm-hmm.
But I want the Nightborn heritage armor.
Oh, is that right?
The other one I want is the Void Elf one, but
Yeah,
I don't.
I actually like the Void
I don't
Elf
plan
one.
on playing any Alliance at all next expansion.
Really?
I
Really?
the story's just so bad.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I just do not like the Alliance storylines at all. There's not enough, like in the books and in any of the actual like the non-in-game lore, you get this more complicated picture. But in game, it's always like we're the goody two shoes, and it just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't explain like when you take any game or fantasy world or anything that decides to make a pure good race or city or government, I can't get drawn into it because it's not realistic, because nothing is going to be like that like we're always the good guys. It's like, no, you're gonna be the bad guys sometimes. That's just how it works. Like
See, I don't
and-
know. I don't know if Blizzard's gonna go that route with the Alliance anymore. Honestly.
they may make this a more interesting one, and some stuff that has been spoiled for me seems to indicate that it's not as black and white as everyone wants it to be. It's like, hey, look, the tree's burning, and it's like, well, we still don't know who does that, but the dialogue indicates that it's not intentional so far. Like, it was not an intended outcome.
Right.
It just happened. Like, and so it's like that's the thing that's like, so it's not necessarily like there's going to be a lot of misunderstandings, which that's frustrating on one hand, because you get what Legion had, where everyone was playing like the Horde abandoned us. It's like, did you even watch? Did you even play both sides to know that like they literally got overrun? Like, and that was one of my favorite parts of how Legion's in Quest, like the scenario storylines played out.
Yeah.
Because the first time playing that, the group I was with literally got overwhelmed. Like, we were dying constantly and getting rezzed. It was just like, no, like, we're actually getting overwhelmed. We can't do anything. And you felt helpless. It felt like what it should.
Yeah, I think I did that. You're talking about the Broken Shore scenario on that?
The opening scenario for Legion, Broken Shore, like, that felt like you were getting overwhelmed. It's like, no, like, we couldn't do anything.
I gotta say, that
Whereas
was really...
on the Alliance side, it feels like you're winning the whole time.
That was a really well done scenario, in my opinion. Like, it made a lot of things feel right. There are parts of it that you're like, this is kind of just like a grind at this point. But like, there's
I only
the
like
beginning
it
and end
after
to me
you.
were on point.
Oh, you were cutting out for a second, so I thought
Sorry.
sorry for talking over you.
Yeah, you're good.
No, for me, like the scenario starts getting good after you like the first part is okay. The second part, where you're just kind of pushing through all the demons,
That was
that doesn't
boring.
like it was boring. It kind of sets up a like, hey, look, we're doing well, we're overcoming, and then the jaws of the trap snap shut. Like,
Yeah.
you feel like, so it does serve a purpose. It just was kind of like, this is going on too long. It's kind of boring.
The interesting part of it to me was like, it felt like the Legion had a plan during this, because like, it was very much like, okay, you have taken the shore, now let's press inland, and then like from there you can see like, oh, they've already shot down our flying vessels, or two of our flying vessels, they've separated the Horde and the Alliance, they've made it so that we cannot stand united together to face them, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna take out one of your leaders. They kill Tyrion, or they take Tyrion or whatever at that point, and then from there, and like, yeah, their big boy gets hurt and goes away. But from there, you push in towards the temple where we're splits, and the Horde takes the high ground. The Alliance takes the low. The Alliance faces off against basically the big dogs of the Legion, and the Horde faces off against the numbers of the Legion. And it was very interesting. I don't know why we're breaking this down at the end of the expansion, but it's just very interesting how like it felt like the Legion was dissecting our battle plans.
Yeah.
by doing that.
Now I will say, like the biggest problem, and like this is where I'm kind of excited to see how they go next time, because the big problem with having this amazing scenario starting and doing leveling how they decided to do it is the story just disappears until the raids, or until we get back to the Broken Shore. Like it just kind of like, because it's
Yeah,
like
it really
the
did.
story was not cohesive. It's I loved how leveling was done. I just wish it was more kind of like MOP was, where it was kind of guided you through the zones with an overarching story, even though each zone had its own contained story. Now, I think with the expansion idea of BFA, having separate zones for leveling it'll be more interesting, because it's just like we're
Yeah.
trying to build allies, we're trying to explore these new lands and gain power through it, and that works with just starting wherever you want.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a story connecting all of them, because you
know-
just don't.
You know what's fascinating to me is, so it feels like with this, the way that they're talking about it is obviously you have your 3 islands per faction that you level up on. You try to make these allies where you can make them, whatever. Which to me says, yeah, we're gonna see Vulpera become an allied race of the Horde. Is my thought. But
Tar's really excited about that.
yeah,
like,
I know. But you see, and that's how you level up, is with that stuff. And it's kind of spread, or it's kind of separate, but you're still working towards the same end goal. But then at level 110, you unlock
120.
120. Thank you. You unlock your the other islands, the other set of islands. The opposite factions' islands, and there's a story on those islands. And my thought is like, that's where the linear story is going to be. When you're at level 110 and you're going into the other faction's territory, I think that's where you're going to see the linear story happen. And I am very excited to see how that turns out, because I have a feeling we're going to get 3 islands of Suramar stuff, which is, to me, Suramar stuff is a well-told story
Yeah.
that has plenty of content, plenty of quests, interesting things to do. Like when you think about
Well,
the
I
stuff Suramar gave you, it was world quests, and then you got the the little mini dungeon run where you have an army thing or whatever, training the army. Like there's a bunch of different stuff that is comprised in that, and I think that's what we're gonna see with the other 3 islands. If we get 3 zones of that, fuck man, that's gonna be some good content, especially if it happens at launch.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Like, I don't think like Legion had linear stories. It's just each island was contained. Are you saying that you think they're all like you're going to have to follow a path and hit each island in order, or each is going to still have their own self-contained story, like Suramar?
I think it's gonna be. I think it has to be, honestly. If you're telling a war story, you can't really go from like. You can't, in my opinion, you can't just go from Germany to Poland to France, or you can go Poland to Germany to France, or like if this is a war story, I believe for congruency's sake, it'd be best to be like, no, man, you siege the beaches of Germany, and then you go here, and then you go there,
But
And
with it
I'm
being
using-
an island, it's different. But like that works when you've got an like a single shoreline. But with an island, it's like no, you can see it. Like if there was one landlocked zone, then yes, you'd have to take the outer ones first. But if they're all separate coastlines, then you can like no, we're going to siege this one and this one and this one, and you can just have different campaigns from different directions. Now it would be, I don't know, it would work more interestingly if you had to follow it through each zone as you went. But it's also the fact that we have flying mounts in this game. Like it's not necessarily like we're not going to have them on release, but it's going to be one of those things like it's lore in the game. Like you can fly anywhere.
Right. But I also think that it's going to be the first time you do Suramar, you can't fly through Suramar. And I think that that's going to be the same mindset taken for this campaign, for this war
Well,
campaign.
yeah, because you're probably going to have to be exalted with whatever factions are assaulting these
Right.
zones.
Or have completed the story.
Yeah.
So I would see, I could see that very likely being what Blizzard wants to do in that expansion, because they've already said there's a war campaign that you do at level 120. It's the end game story basically, and I think that that's very exciting. I really like that they're going to continue with this idea of having an end game story. My thing is what kind of effect? So when the Alliance are going to be attacking Zandalar, right? We're going onto our islands or whatever, and, engaging us there. What kind of effect is that going to have on the environment in patch 8.2.5 or whatever? After the story's done and everything, are we going to see a shift? Are we going to see like, oh, that city got destroyed, during the war that area got destroyed and now it's completely different from where it was when it started the expansion. That's something I could definitely see happening, considering the kinds of changes they made in Legion. I mean, they put a fucking planet in the sky. Like during
Yeah.
Legion, they could very easily just wipe out one of the cities that we leveled up in, and like there it was, and there it went. So
The question is really like how much phasing of their phasing technology do they actually want to use?
that's true.
Like how many times they want to break it down? Is it just like is it when you hit 110 things start changing immediately, or is it you've finished the storylines for the opposite zones, and so your zones have now been attacked, and so now you have to go back to your zones and take them back over, or I don't know. Like this is all like thinking ahead and what it'll be.
Yeah.
But and like don't forget, like we still have the island excursions. That are
Oh man,
completely-
those look great. Have you seen the test footage of them?
I have
excursions?
not. The only test footage, only like alpha footage I've watched has been final bosses class breakdowns,
Mm-hmm.
which makes me very excited for Warlock because
Yeah.
Demonology to me, like I know a lot of people don't like the direction they went in, but Demonology to me looks like okay, empowerment's gone, which was annoying, and I'm fine with it being gone. It just feels like now you can like build an army of demons, like they were able to get like 20 up at one time. That feels amazing.
Yeah, that'd be really fun. That'd be a lot.
I
of
mean,
fun.
the big problem is it's probably not very like raid viable just because they don't target switch very well.
No, it'd be fun.
But it still would be fun. It's just like, no, look at me. Like, where's the raid? Who needs it? I've got an army.
Dude, that'd be fun in PvP though.
Yeah,
So, I can't remember if I put it in our Discord or not, but I thought I sent you and Strimple the video of I believe it was Bellular who did alpha testing on the island excursions, and it looks genuinely fun. Like, and I'm thinking I'm only really interested in island excursions from the PvP standpoint because it feels like this would be the kind of PvP that a tank would be something that is highly sought after for, because as a well-geared tank I could go in there and I could make sure that if we get attacked, I can take the beating from the NPC guys after we've tapped them, and then also we stay alive while we're dealing with the Alliance. And so to me, like, that whole aspect, which is very likely going to be proven wrong, is exciting to me. But on top of that, the actual gameplay itself looks like it's a lot of fun because of the way, when you come to the island, you start at a different spot on the island, and each time, and like, there's a different setup, different surroundings, even different, hidden bosses that spawn and everything. It's a race to get them as much Azerite as you can, but it looks like it's actually going to be very fun. And I'm excited for that. I'm really excited for like a new style of PvP that, yeah, it blends with, PvE a little bit, but like, it's still, I don't know, I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be an amazing addition for PvP if you don't care for Battlegrounds, the scale of Battlegrounds, or the style of Arena. This might be your niche.
yeah. My big thing I'm hoping for out of PvP is, that one, like I know they're looking at CC versus not CC, which I'm happy because it's frustrating. CC can be frustrating all the time, but also like as they said, like just having it a pure DPS fight can be frustrating as well.
Yeah.
It's one of the core flaws, having been playing a couple other games, like games that have dodge rolls built in add such a additional level of like playability around other players that it's just hard to come back to it. But at the same time, I'm hoping that we bring in some better style world quests that are PvP focused. So no longer these tower things where you will never ever find the other faction at your tower, because or like one of the things that I kind of wish they had done with the PvP World Quest. And maybe it's just because they thought no one would ever play them, but it would be like, no, like both factions are going to be attacking the same tower at the same time. Like that would be the World Quest, rather than like what it is now, which is like, hey, you've got this tower that you got to attack. But if I logged in my Alliance tune, same on the same server, it's like they don't have that one's not on their map. It doesn't give them any reason to go there and actually fight.
Right.
So, I don't know. I'm hoping to see like, because as much as people can say no, PvP was better when it was natural and just popped up in the world. Yeah, but without a place to congregate and find PvP, it can be frustrating.
Structure is important in PvP. I mean,
Like,
it is undeniable. That
But I like if you
structure
want
is
the open world aspect, because the open world aspect is fun. At the same time, like the most fun I had it was like in BC you've got, and even Draenor, where there were those zones that were open and had PvP objectives on the map that you could try and take.
Right.
That really didn't do anything, but you would sometimes get some PvP around them.
Yeah. And I think I mean, I really liked, I think it was in Burning Crusade whenever they had the objectives in certain zones where it would give you like a zone-wide buff, or I think it was in Hala, you would have access to a certain vendor or something. Like, that's pretty cool stuff to like kind of prod people towards doing some world PvP. But I think they could do a better job of that. And I also think that setting is kind of important. Like, I think about it in the sense of, if we're going into a war zone, right, and you know you're going to be going into the Alliance's islands or whatever, that to me is like, I'm going to go back to to Zandalar, I'm going to turn my PvP flag on, and I'm going to do this for real, you know? And if it's a struggle, it's a struggle. If I can bring friends, I'm going to bring friends, you know? Because it's part of, like, providing that extra bit of immersion for myself. Like, yes, I want to get these quests done, and eventually I will get frustrated enough to go back to Zandalar, turn off PvP, go back just so I can see the fucking quest and get to the next part. But like, for that little bit where you're having success, you know, where your team is able to kill the Alliance off, get the quest completed, get whatever you need for that quest while fighting off, you know, the Alliance and everything, that is an experience, man. And especially if you run into other players that are doing the same thing that you can team up with, that's a hell of an experience. So if the story supports that happening, and other players, you know, are like, you know, I'll do this for real. You know, this is it. This is the Horde versus the Alliance expansion. Let's put it on and do this. That would make for a hell of a time. And I'm hoping the big hope is that it will be populated. You know, it's not going to be like PvP today, where you're on a PvP server, you either get ganked or you don't run into anybody. You know, and that is what it is right now. That's what World PvP is you either get ganked or you don't run into anybody. And that sucks, because the big problem is you need population. So to have it to where you have a large number of players that are being pointed to the same direction, right? We're all being pointed to Borealis right now, or whatever the hell. That is where you hope that a lot of people are turning on their PvP flags so that it can feel like an actual battle.
Well, and what I want to see is, because they've talked about something similar to the World Defense Channel is coming back.
Yeah, that would be
so
nice.
I'm curious to see how that's going to work with this. Like, if I'm flagged off, but I see in that channel, hey, Borealis, I can flag up and go fly there and find people to fight. I hope it works like that, and not like, no, I have to already be flagged to even see it.
Yeah, I hope it does too.
What I'm interested to see, and this will kind of tell me make or break, if at 120 and world quests are out, if there are PvP world quests up, if you're not flagged, I want them to only be there when you're flagged, because I don't want people to be able to do PvP world quests unflagged. Like, I guess, but like, I was like, but I just want to prestige so I can get the skins or whatever. It's like, no, like, you want a PvP. It goes back to, like, there was one person, they got kicked out of the guild at some point, but they were complaining about getting attacked while in doing one of the PvP tower things, and it was like, wait, there's actual PvP going on at one of the PvP zones? That's awesome.
That's a blessing, man.
And he was like complaining. He's like, I just want to get this thing done. It's like, hey, maybe if you don't want a PvP, don't go to a PvP zone.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very excited about the changes for World PvP because I have hope. You know, the hope will be dashed halfway through BFA, but I have hope. But it's exciting to think that we could see a mode where there is open world PvP happening, where you're fighting 120s versus 120s, you know, and it doesn't have to be large scale battles, but it would be really nice. And as what you were saying about world quests, where you know, you can only, I think you phrased it a little wrong because I think it's important to not be flagged and still see those quests, but you can't do them unless you're flagged, would be the important part to me. Because otherwise it would be like, yeah, I'm not flagged, and like you don't switch over because you're out
Well,
doing
no,
stuff.
I'm
You
more
don't see those
interested
quests.
in stuff like all world quests are the same, but when you flag, you get the additional reward.
Yeah, I'm interested in that
You
too.
you get the marks of honor for as well as whatever like the Azerite reward. Like you're getting 2 rewards if you're flagged for PvP. One's
Right.
a PvP only reward, but
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you trust Blizzard?" It's like, well, yeah, because I mean, if I didn't, I wouldn't still be playing this
Yeah.
game after as many years as I have. Like,
dude, it's been
yeah,
15
they make
years. I'm not gonna
mistakes.
stop.
People make mistakes. Like, developers make mistakes all the time. My overall interaction with this game has been positive.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like I know that there's going to be the underlying theme of old gods in this expansion, and I don't think that's avoidable, and I do think that's going to end up being what one of the big raids is about is old gods. But it's
Yeah,
still
and
and part of me is like, cool, old gods, but the other part of me is like, no, let's keep this Horde versus Alliance as much as we can. Like let's really harp on Horde versus Alliance in this expansion and not
Yeah.
put a big bad that, you know, we need to ally get together against. Like I'm fine with them being like, okay, Azerite is going to be leaking through the surface of Azeroth for the next 2 expansions because we want this expansion to be about us trying to get Azerite, manipulate Azerite, and fighting Horde versus Alliance, and we want the next expansion to be about stopping the bleeding. Like I am totally okay with that. Give us an expansion where it is just Horde and Alliance, and let's see what we can do with the story. Is my thought.
Yeah. The big thing with me, like with the story, like, and why I'm a little, I don't know, the big flaw with old god stuff, and this is where it kind of always comes back, is you can have, they can write characters completely out of character
Yeah.
and just be like, oh, they were being influenced by an old god.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen because so far what we've seen is we've seen like with the Void Elves where during some of the starting zone quests, they're, and that's not old gods, but like they're just a beacon to the void creatures, and so the void creatures just will know where they are and try and like get anything that they want out of that.
Yeah.
So there's that. That's more interesting to me than the void stuff. The void stuff's more interesting than the old god stuff because the old gods, like, they corrupt, but the void kind of is this hidden thing in the background that, yeah, it can cause madness, but it can also just like it just will come out and like try and achieve its goals.
It's
I don't
like
know.
the ultimate biting of time bad guy.
Yep.
It's really cool to me, like in that regard, where it's like it just watches, it waits, and then it manipulates, and then maybe it strikes, maybe it doesn't. You probably wouldn't know. Like it's cool. It's cool the way that they adapted what are they, the Eldritch Horrors or whatever into the game. But in that same regard, like there is some silliness that they can just use it to retcon a character, use it to retcon a story. That's frustrating, and I hope that's kind of the scary part, in my opinion, of like having old gods or even the void influencing part of an expansion where there's going to be hopefully a lot of story happening. You don't want to be, the worst part is getting to the end of a story and wondering what parts of it were real, and being like, what parts of this matter? What part of this are real? What part of this is going to go into the next, expansion? Like Warlords of Draenor is probably the most recent example I can think of. Archimonde being killed. We had no idea what that meant because we didn't know if that meant, well, he can still respawn and we'll have to fight Archimonde again. We had no idea if that meant, Archimonde 2 is still alive in our universe, or, at the time. We had no idea what all that meant. And so, like, to get to the end of the fucking story, and then have this big pinnacle point and be wondering, is this big pinnacle point even real? Did any of this just even fucking matter? Like, and for the game, because the game never explained that. For the game to never, to not address it until you kill
we've
Argus.
got another one.
Like,
we don't know if Agramar's dead or not.
right. Like, there's...
No, not Agramar. What the hell is his name? Oh my gosh.
Sargeras?
Yeah, Sargeras. We don't know if he's actually dead. He's
Right.
fighting Illidan for eternity.
Or he's locked away. Like, we have the context clues of being like this, of the good guys, the heroes or whatever, being like, Khadgar being like, it's finally over, or whatever, Velen saying it's finally over. Like, yeah, Maiev said that when we when we killed Illidan, when we quote-unquote killed Illidan. Maiev said that it was over. She said that the hunts ended. It's like, but it didn't, because now Illidan's a good guy. Like, it's just, what? It's so frustrating in that regard sometimes with the Warcraft story. It's just like, I don't want to get to the end of the expansion and be like, wait, so hold on. Was Jaina a Dreadlord, or was she not a Dreadlord? Like, was she actually deceiving
Was she
us
listening to
or
the
them,
whispers
or-
of old gods?
Right. Did Anduin actually tell us lies in this part? Did, who said at the Circle of Stars? Oh God. But, so there's a lot of things you hope that there's going to be, like, enough for you to say, like, okay, this story makes sense, and now I'm looking forward to the continuation in the next expansion. I don't want to be asking questions again, like I did in WoD, and, like, kind of questions about Sargeras, but in my opinion, you know where he is, though, is the important part. You know where Sargeras is. You know
he's
that,
no longer looming in
right.
in the Nether. He is trapped with the other
And I think, honestly, because Illidan's
Titans.
there...
There you go, this one.
Right. And I think, honestly, because Illidan is there, and this is kind of the important reason they left Illidan there, in my opinion, is because if Sargeras gets out, we will know. Is kind of why he was left there, is my thought. It's like, if Sargeras gets out,
Either it's going
because
to be
Illidan's
like
there, we will
Illidan
somehow
dies and
know.
Malfurion knows somehow, or Tyrande knows, or whatever. Like, I don't know. Now, did you catch that one piece of bad news
Bad news, you say? Do tell.
in BFA? Mission tables.
Oh, yeah, I fucking saw that shit.
And see, part of me, like, I like the concept. I liked the mission tables in Legion more than I liked them in Warlords.
I just hate them all together.
Mostly because it really never felt like it was just something where I could choose once a day. Do I want some AP? Do I want some gold? Like, that's really all I used it for. Or do I want some Bloods of Surrogate? Like, I think, and maybe the system just has to be something like that, because I like that kind of not impactful part of it. But I'm hoping what we'll see with that, maybe it's something that's like, no, this is it's tied into the conquest things that we talked about during beta or during BlizzCon. Like, no, like, the mission tables are not player specific. The resources are server overall, and everyone's contributing to building up your army.
Yeah.
Something more like opening the gates of Silithus.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
I think they've been trying to keep him in there because I think there's like a lot. There's obviously hate for him, and then there's like indifference for him, and then there's probably a few people who generally like it. I'm more of the indifferent. It's nice to get free resources, but I could do without him. Like, I'm not going to log in every day to deal with missions. Even at the even in mid progression, I didn't do that. So.
Right. I pretty much only cared about the gear box from the raids you get from doing the quests each week. That was pretty much all I cared about whenever we were in full swing, and that was only on Braille. I never got any of my other characters up ever. Even when I switched to Old Bray, I didn't want to waste my time with those stupid mission tables. There's other shit I can do to get gear, and And that's kind of what they are to me, is like, yeah, if you got a main that you play more than anything else and you're going to raid on him and stuff, like, you get a little bonus for him, and it's available to your other characters, but, like, I couldn't be bothered. I didn't care. It's not really worth it to me. So if they keep it in that vein where it's really this nothing part of the game, I mean, my thought is like, why even have it? But also, I don't care, you know? It's like, why have it?
But like some of the things are like, it's a night for me right now. It's a nice way for me to get a little bit of gold to help deal with repair bills.
Yeah.
And for crafting mats. And the big one is it's Bloods, where I don't have to go do a world quest for Bloods. Like, take a little, like, it takes a little bit of that, the world quest chore feeling. Like, I can go after the world quests that I find fun. Like, that's what I've been, like, when I've been doing world quests, I look for the ones that I actually enjoy, because I've done, like, they cycle, I've done them all now. So I can be like, hey, that one is fun, I'll do that one, rather than be like, oh, what is it, Reward? Oh, I don't want that. Now it's just like, yeah, I'd like doing that one, it's quick, it's fun.
Yeah.
I've run it, like, there's something that's like, nope, that's the squirrel one. I don't want to click on squirrels for the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I really like having, there's like some bonuses that you get out of the class order halls and stuff that I'm actually going to kind of miss. Like one of them, on my death knight, that is, you can complete a world quest instantly without having to do it or whatever, and you get it once a day. Like, I love that, because I just, like, I don't care about doing world quests on him anymore, because I've got the legendaries I cared about. And so now it's like, alright, you know, if I'm going to do a world quest, I'm just going to go for something that's going to add to something fun in the game, which recently for me has been the pet battles. So I'm basically just getting a bunch of pet battle tokens and stuff for free without having to do shit, and I can spend them on leveling up a bunch of pets, which is cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm going to miss having something that adds to that little ease of access to make things a little more fun, or to make things a little more, like, I don't know, I use it for basically what I call chill out mode, which is where I don't do anything that affects my character in any major way, other than maybe achievements, but that's not really that major. So it's just, I like it. And I'm wondering if there's going to be anything similar in Battle for Azeroth that'll be like, yeah, you get like this shit that'll give you this kind of bonus in the world. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, or that, like, that could be tied into their, like, okay, so we move away from, like, all the mission table is for is these things that take the chore out of it, or like pretty much almost every single class had something they could research for, like consumables that really weren't worth it for anything, but they were like a fun little flavor thing.
Yeah.
Like, or increases your health across the broken shore. Like, that was great when you hit max level, but after you're in raid gear, it's just like,
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
I'll just smash everything in the face and win.
And there's also the increases the likelihood of a quest to reward you for, or to like the gear from quest to Titan Forge. I think that's was a pretty cool addition. It's pretty nice. But,
yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to expect. We're getting there. Because let me see. What was the? Damn it.
Looking for the expected launch time area. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, because it's on the it was on the actual pre-purchase. Like they're legally you have to give a date of release. September 21st is the latest it's going to come out.
The latest it's going to come out.
And because like legally to put a pre-purchase you have to give a date.
Yeah, so that means we're inside of 6 months.
Yep.
Wow. That is
And we're still in alpha.
Beta. Yeah, I was about to say.
I've heard alpha, open alpha invites on it, because like the first alpha is always friends and family only, and so like that's why the streamers get it, because they're friends.
Yeah. Oh, they're friends, all right. Friends with benefits, baby.
And then like so open alpha stuff's going out, which I'm thinking that means it's gonna. There's been some decent changes, and like the big thing is like a lot of stuff apparently just doesn't work right now. So that's like, I think once those things start working, then it's going to switch to beta.
Yeah, and I think they want a preliminary version of all of their new systems on the alpha build before they open beta up, because like think about, we still don't have Warfronts. We just got Island Excursions. So Islands
Yeah.
Excursions is in a preliminary
Oh, yeah, and,
phase.
like,
It's ready.
we
It's
still
ready
have-
for beta, basically.
We still have classes with just
Exactly.
dead talent.
Yep.
In that, like,
There's stuff.
like, well, one of the best things, and like, if they can get it working, it sounds fun for Demonology Warlocks. It's just every 10 seconds summon a demon, an imp, and it also has when it summons that imp, it has a 20% chance to summon a greater demon of any of the demons in the game. So the problem with it right now is it summons them, and they. Well, no. The big problem with them right now is they'll just start attacking anything around you and keep you in combat permanently because you're summoning one every 10 seconds.
That would be awesome, dude. I would like that. Like, it summons it could summon any big demon from the game, and it's like all of a sudden Draxus shows up. It's like, oh, what the shit? I got a raid boss now. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
No, but like it's kind of cool. Like, Demonology looks like, if they can get it working, it looks fun. It looks like they've hit that flavor that they were going for. Maybe you don't like that flavor, but that's the direction it's going, and I like it.
I'm excited for Survival Hunter because it looks like they're just making it into momentum build from Demon Hunter, which I thought was a lot of fun, but a different style of momentum build.
It feels a little bit like they're pulling stuff from. I mean, people hate to hear, but like they're pulling stuff from like some of their other games. Like, no, we like the idea of having this melee and range character.
Hell yeah!
Based on what you do, and I'm sure like there's going to be talents that put you like 50-50 or 80% range, 20% melee, or 80% melee, 20% range, and it's gonna flow based on what you take talent wise.
See, I would like, I'm down with having meta builds and shit, but I would really like if they were like, okay, let's say like there are like 2 to 3 meta builds per spec, or at least let's just say 2 meta builds per spec, and my thing is like, if those were to be equal, right? So your momentum or your fucking just stand a melee and DPS build, right? If those were to do equal damage, that would be awesome. Or to be like very similar output that you're really fine no matter whichever you take. That'll never happen, but that would be awesome because there's always going to be the primary meta spec that's going to be your best spec to go.
See, but I want to see where
situations.
You start getting to the point where meta is not the best spec for everyone. Like, okay, this is the meta spec, but there's this spec that you will perform better on because it's got less buttons to it or more buttons to it.
And I think that's what Blizzard's goal is, honestly. But and really and I'm sorry to cut you off here, but when you really look at how it works spec to spec, the best one to point at, in my opinion, would probably be the difference between Survival Hunter and Beast Mastery Hunter. Where Beast Mastery, at least earlier on in this expansion, where Survival could do higher output, but it was a lot of buttons and arguably really difficult rotation. And then you had Beast Mastery, which is 3 buttons. And a lot of people were able to perform well with Beast Mastery because the rotation wasn't difficult. You could move while you're attacking, and it's ranged. And so it's interesting. Like, that would, to me, is like the best spec-to-spec variant, where it isn't that much of there's a best spec, but there's a spec that is best for you. And I think to be able to break it down into more meta specs would be awesome.
Well, and as far as like when talking like specs within like talent specs of being like the only class I know that currently has like 2 viable builds, like meta talent choices, is Assassination Rogue, because you can take the poison build or the bleed build.
Mm-hmm.
The poison build is arguably stronger, but the bleed build is close, and it's just a completely different playstyle. The big problem with the bleed build, which is something that I've wanted them to fix for the longest time, is you've got that talent internal bleeding, which is when you kidney shot, it causes bleeding. But bosses are immune to the stun, so the bleed doesn't go on them. It's like, just make it like every other, like Demon Hunter's got an ability, like if the boss is immune to the stuns, when you use the stun ability, do more damage. There you go. Like, why isn't that in place? Like, it could make that bleed build be completely viable.
Yeah.
So I'm less interested to see. I think we're actually closer to the point where spec-wise for like the multi DPS specs where there's going to be a meta one, but we're close enough. Like mage, you can like fire and frost are competitive. Arcane kind of fell off, but for a while there, all three were competitive.
Yeah.
But I'm more interested, like, so I think they've kind of gotten to that point. I want to see breaking up of the meta talent stuff, where the talents are actually like, I want to take what I want to take, and it's not going to be a huge disadvantage.
I agree. I absolutely agree, because like one of the big things I was excited for as a hunter was Dragonfire Grenade, and that's only usable in PvP. Like you're not going to be able to keep the same output up if you're using Dragonfire Grenade on a hunter in raid as somebody who's using the other talent that I can't remember the fucking name of. Like it's not going to work. You have to take that other talent. And it sucks because I don't know. To me, that's a fun ability. Dragon's Fire Grenade was a fun ability to me because I liked explosions, I guess. But I don't know. You just hope that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because like and to Blizzard's credit, like once I started sieving myself and not just living to the meta, I've found sometimes where, okay, this sims within 200 DPS. Like that's nothing when you're talking about 2 million as baseline. It's like, okay, I'll take a loss of 200 because it's significantly easy, and there's no guarantee that I'm going to hit the 100% parse or the 100% to the sim,
right?
With like all the uptime required. So yeah, I'll take Absolute Corruption, even though like it sims like, and so that's where it's like, if you're willing to do the work to check, it's entirely possible that the meta for talents has already been broken. It's just, I mean, meta is most effective tactic available, I think is what it stands for. So, it's just,
I never knew what it stood for.
that's what I've heard it stand for. I'm sure that people will say there's other definitions, but that's the one that I've heard the most. It's just like, okay, there's the old, sorry, just heard a yell. They're watching MotoGP in the other room, so.
But yeah, I agree though, in the sense of making it so you can take more talent, or just take more talents. That would be more fun. And as far as like shifting within degrees, because that is kind of important to remember though, is like with parse and like having your highest parse and whatnot. Like yeah, if you're a mythic raider, or you're pushing for the MDI or whatever, like there's a lot of times where your parse is going to be crucial, that you're hitting that as best you can to get every last little hit, every last little amount of DPS you could get. But it's still also when you're doing like regular stuff, like doing in heroic raids, if you're not going for being able to get every ounce of DPS, like there's been more and more viable shit, and I saw this a lot with my warrior actually, is like I got to change his talents around a lot this expansion to kind of play with his DPS and to play with how much damage he can take and whatnot, and that is what you want, in my opinion, for class design. You want to make it so that these talents aren't just talents, they're options. Tanks
definitely are the ones that feel the most like that.
Yeah,
because it's less of a numbers game. You like, hey, I can take this, but it's going to make my tanking harder, but it makes me do more damage. Or I can take one that makes my rotation stupid easy and also gives me a ton of survivability, but my damage is trash. It's like, I want to be a lazy tank. I'm just going to take that. It's like, no, we need as much DPS. Okay, I'm going to go the hard spec.
Well, also another thing that like the big thing I noticed on my Blood Death Knight was what the hell's the one that makes me survive for like 10 seconds, and if I get healed I'll stay alive, but whenever I've gone past 0. Purgatory, yeah. Purgatory is great for whenever you are out of your depth, like whenever you're in a really tough situation, like being item level 850 and running a plus 15, which is what I did. It's great for that, because you are likely to take a ton of damage, but you need to buy time. Whereas once you get the higher item level, you can just switch over to fucking Blood Mirror, and you have
it's crazy is like
cooldown along with the DPS cooldown. Not as effective as Purgatory, but still effective.
Yeah, and as far as I know, like Purgatory for the longest time was still meta for heroic.
Yeah,
it's just like, I'm confident in my ability to tank, and if I'm dying, I'm the last one alive, so Purgatory is a waste.
Yeah, Purgatory becomes a waste.
Or
Yeah.
I screwed up, and if I screwed up, honestly, it's one of those things. Just like we should probably.
But what do you think of talents being like? And this really probably only applies to maybe tanks and maybe healers. But what do you think of having it so that talents are more effective for you to are designed? Some talents may be designed to be more effective for you to either catch up from behind, or because that's the thing about Purgatory is if you're not worried about dying, there is no point to Purgatory at all, because it's meant for people who are having struggle or who are struggling just staying alive. And you can see that being effective in maybe progression rating where you're taking too much damage, but usually in progression rating, if you're taking too much damage, it's more than Purgatory that you need to fix. So
yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know. I think based on what they've said, they don't want it to be this choice between, okay, I'm on an AoE fight, here's an AoE talent. They want it to be a choice within the rows.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna see the tier of Purgatory. Purgatory maybe is the save you from death talent, and then the next talent's going to be no, this is a big cooldown instead that can do the same thing, but it requires your input. It's no longer and so hopefully we'll see stuff like that where Purgatory is still one of those I'm learning it.
Yeah.
And then you've got or I just don't feel like having an extra button to hit, and then you've got no, here's Blood Mirror, which does the same thing, but I have to hit it.
Right. Well, it's not even just that you have to hit it. It's more of just
time it and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm saying not current build, but whatever they do to replace. It's the same thing as Purgatory. Effectively, it will save you from a killing blow, but
you have to
you just have to know. You have to know I'm about to take a killing blow.
Right. Well, then what's the point of taking that talent? But yeah,
with Purgatory, I think in most cases where Purgatory is about to proc, I know it's about to proc.
Right.
I can watch my health go down. I just have no cooldowns left for it.
Right. My thing is, as far as the scenario you're describing goes, though, what you're basically saying is, would you rather have Purgatory automatically happen, or would you rather have to push the button? In which case, the answer should always be automatically happen, because that way,
unless pushing the button has a benefit to it.
Right. Okay. Right.
Purgatory's benefit is it's automatic.
Yeah.
Let's call it Blood Mirror as well. Blood Mirror it reflects the damage and heals you. So timing is important, and suddenly it becomes a lot. It's super strong, but it's maybe not 100% viable for every single person running it because it requires a lot of skill.
Okay, that makes sense. I follow you.
But then again, the meta will decide, and but I think with stuff that requires an actual level of skill, you'll see some more interesting plays. Of course, then the Warcraft logs will be interesting because this is meta based on everyone was but the people who are in the 100 percentile are obviously running the skill based talents.
That would be really interesting if Blizzard decided to ever take that approach, where it's you have this ability, you got AoE ability A, which is just you cast Blizzard and it fucking does its damage and shit and stays put and does its damage. You have ability B, which is a channeled or whatever, and you can increase the length of it going by using this or whatever. You have ability C, which is you have to do X, Y, and B to make sure this does, hits these multiple things while you're doing this damage. And so basically the idea is that the more you do, the more you get. The better input you have, the better output.
Suddenly your AoE is like Cap Totem.
Right.
They have to be. You have to pre-target where they're going, not where they are.
So it'd be really interesting to see them take that approach to all spec designs if they ever did, where it's you could play it easy mode and you'll still do good damage and stuff. What if they designed it so that one spec was designed for players who raid on normal, another spec was designed for people who raid on heroic, and the last row of the spec or whatever, going from left to right, is designed for people who raid on mythic. Wouldn't that be fucking crazy? It's you could probably burn through heroic.
One direction to go with it.
that it would be interesting because it'd be like, yeah, you could probably burn through heroic really quick if you're all running your mythic talents and you know how to play that spec that way. Like that would be fascinating class design
Yeah.
to me. But also I could
The other
see where that would
direction
be
could be
fucking
theme.
stupid. What?
Yeah, the other direction could be theme. Like,
Yeah.
I think assassination kind of shows like you've got your poison line and your bleed line.
Yeah.
Like, you've got multiple talents on multiple roles that all fit into an idea. Now you can mix and match them. It may not be the best. It could, but I don't know. Like I've been playing a decent amount of Guild Wars 2 lately and just messing around with building my own build that's not meta and having a decent amount of success because I put on a DPS meter and it's like I'm keeping up with the top people, so I don't care if I'm not running a meta build. It's fun.
Dude, I would be
But like, but you get to play around with these weird like mix and match type things when you like. I like that. I want that back. I used to make some weird hybrid builds in vanilla because all I ever did was open world PvP back then. Like I wasn't willing to commit the time for raiding back then, mostly because my only attempt into it was miserable because of the organization involved and like internet was shitty and it's just like my computer wasn't great back then. It's just like, no, I'm just gonna do what's fun, which is open world PvP.
I would definitely, as far as theme goes, like that would be nice to kind of like, you know, one of the big gripes I have about Hunter right now is it's one of the big gripes a lot of people have about Hunter right now is marksman not really being viable to use a pet in. And it's like, yeah, it's a cool like ranger fantasy that you have for marksman hunter, but like there should also be a viable build that includes your pet for marksman. Like, and you could say, oh, well, why wouldn't you just go beast mastery? Because you still want to use the pet, and you could still have your pet be a factor in the fight.
I think
but you still like the gameplay of marksman and the way, you know, the rotation works, whatever. Like, it kind of really sucks ass that you're stuck without a pet, and so it's like half of what you want, you know. And so I think to at least have the viable option, and that's the important part to me for that is something Blizzard needs to address.
And I think they need to, like, they could have, I don't know, like it's so hard to do that. It's just stupid how ridiculously hard it is to make it so the community doesn't sit there. Because like, I'd have to I would need to jump on my hunter and sim it. But I think last time I simmed it, Lone Wolf versus what was the talent I took instead of it? I can't remember. But like it was within 2% for me, for my gear on my hunter. But it's not meta. But at the same time, I know that 2% is also not accurate from a sim because my pet's going to be on the boss the whole time in the sim.
Yeah.
Whereas in a non-sim situation, in like an actual raid fight, this pet has to move around, may die during the fight.
Yeah.
So the pet has to be stronger, but then suddenly no one's ever taking that lone wolf talent. Like for me, a lot of times it's like for Frost Mage, where the go-to talent was Lonely Winter, I think. So no pet, and I was fine with that because all I ever used the Water Elemental for was shatter combos in the old days. Like I hated that thing otherwise.
Yeah.
It was just a pain to micromanage. And it's just like, I'm glad I can just get rid of it. Especially because shatter doesn't necessarily work the way it used to. So it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm glad it's gone. And at the same time, I think I would have taken it regardless because I hated that thing so much. But if that was my main and we were stuck on progression and I was like middle of the pack DPS, I would have had to take whatever meta was because I don't like being in the middle of the pack.
Yeah. I
don't know.
Yeah,
it's such a hard thing to do because it's not like they can just say, okay, end result this and put the numbers in and there it goes, because that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Like they don't balance around sims. I will say that it's like if it's not changing consistent, like per boss fight, then it's probably not balanced. Because like you see a lot of that happening on like the specs that were definitely in good balance. You look at them and people are changing certain talent, and not just like AoE versus non-AoE, but like choose different single target fights, and people are changing talents on them. Then you realize that talent row is balanced because people are changing it based on the situation. Now, I'm sure some people are lazy and they're like there's some. I remember looking at some rows of like top 10 players on a fight and see like half the people using one ability and half using the other. It's like, okay, these guys just didn't want to change because they're more comfortable with this, but that's a balanced talent row. And there's just not enough of that, and it's just so hard, man. I do not envy the class balance team. I also don't envy the community team because they get all the shit, even though they have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, like the player base can be pretty brutal in general for WoW. Well, just for a lot of games. But speaking of a lot of games, I'm gonna go ahead and start. We're gonna start wrapping this show up here, and before we get into what we're planning on doing anytime soon, I wanted to make a proposition with you, Faye, because there's a game I've really been looking forward to coming out, and I think 2 days or something like that. I want to see if I could get you to play with me. It's called Sea of Thieves. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but it's basically a multiplayer pirate game that I think it might be coming out on either Steam or the Microsoft Store. But you should look into it and see if you want to play it, and see if you're gonna have the money for it. And I'll see if I'll have the money for it, and we'll see if we can play it together. But I just wanted to bring that up while I could remember. I feel like that'd be a great game to stream together. That said, Faye, do you have anything that you're thinking of streaming coming up?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I've got to decide if I haven't done like any streaming in a while. It's just
neither did I.
If I do, it's just probably going to be a little bit of Overwatch. Maybe I think I'm probably going to try and do some Keystones this week.
Right on.
Just to have some fun. Maybe some lower level ones on my Rogue or my Warlock, just to get him, or maybe even my Warrior that I'm working on. Although I'm just not enjoying that playstyle, man.
Don't blame me.
It's like I love the theme of Fury, but I hate how it plays. And I like how Arms plays, but I hate the theme.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
We'll see. Unfortunately for me, I don't think I'll actually get a chance at least this week to stream at all, just because I've got a very busy week ahead of me, and just some of the real life stress is going to be coming to a head on Tuesday because the source of it's coming back into town.
Ooh, that's exciting.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully that gets better for you, and hopefully the stress starts to die down. I know as for myself, because I'm looking at. I'm back as my thing. I'm back into streaming. I'm working on getting everything going correctly now. I got a webcam. I got widgets and all that crap happening. So that's pretty fun. And I did a stream last night where I did the Hearthstone dungeon run for 6 hours. And I was very drunk and I was trying to fucking beat it, but eventually I did, which was really nice. And I put I think the highlights up on the YouTube channel now, and it's also on this Twitch channel from what I understand. So if anybody wanted to see me get super happy at 5 o'clock in the morning, that video is available.
Oh, that's why you texted me at 2 a.m. my time.
Yeah. Yeah. That was like that was a little bit after I started the stream. And then let's see, earlier tonight I streamed a little bit of Overwatch, and then I'm gonna do some StarCraft tournaments tonight for some streaming, and then this week I'm taking tomorrow off. Tuesday, Wednesday I'll be back with a vengeance, streaming some surprise games. Doubt it will be any Blizzard games. Then again, it'll probably be some Blizzard games. But Tuesday, Wednesday I'll be streaming a lot those days. If we have a raid night, I'll stream that as well.
And one of these days we'll get a stream in Atlanta when you fulfill your end of the bet.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's just taking a little time to get the money.
No, I get
one
that.
One of these days.
I'm sitting here I was so excited. My paycheck came in, and then it was just like, and it's all gone.
Yeah.
Those bills.
That already happened to me this week.
Yep.
It was a weak paycheck. but that was because I took all that time off for the MDI. Anyways, I think that's about it for me, though. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get everything better. I'm also trying to, I've got all the Adobe crap now, so I'm going to be trying to upgrade the quality of this podcast as well, in the sense of, rather than just having one little slate card, we might see some different kind of format come into play that allows for random things to be pulled up, like videos and browser stuff, and have a little more display happening. And maybe even some better channel art. We'll see. But
if only we could train you to be able to play and podcast at the same time, then we could do some gameplay in the background. But
yeah, if only I could. I will lose focus.
Yeah, splitting your attention is hard for a lot of people.
Yeah. But anyways, if you've been watching this entire time, I know there's been 2 of you, so thank you for watching. Leave me a follow. I'm trying to get to the affiliate level, so leave me a follow. Check out This Faye on Twitter as well, or Twitter. Wow, on Twitch as well. That's
I don't understand Twitter, so good luck with that.
I actually do have a Twitter now, which is, I believe, at WowAltivia. If you want to check that out, I've also got my YouTube channel, so look for Altivia on YouTube or click the mug down below. I think that's all the plug-in I got left in me. I got a Facebook page, but I don't really care about it. So there we go. Merch will be available soon. Just kidding. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. We will be back next week at the same time. Good night.